Hey everybody, it's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. My usual introduction. Probably need to come up with something more cleverer. So, I just want to do a quick video about some upcoming news. Kind of exciting, at least for me and all 12 people that watch these. Um, please like, subscribe, share, all that YouTube-y oddness, but yet coolness. So yeah, do that. Let's try to grow this channel a little bit so I can bring more Savage Kingdoms role-playing games to you, and also, if you follow some of my acting stuff, some acting techniques and that sort of thing. Right. So, today's video is about this Savage Kingdoms role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game. That's the core rulebook, right? Which covers the western continent of Astagonia, as some of you may or may not know, as well as introducing the core rules. So, the big announcement is the next book is The Savage East. And I know some of you already know this, and based on the previous pattern of 6 years ago, the original edition, and 3 years ago, the Reforged edition, here with Savage Kingdoms 3rd edition. Can you believe it's been 3 editions? Technically, this is the second one. That's Reforged was 1.5. Anyway, so the same model as the previous two. I had the core rulebook, and then I have the Savage East. I followed the same model. I'm going to do the same model again because it seems like it works, and I like the name, the Savage East. So, what does the Savage East mean? Well, it's basically the book. It's the 3rd edition version of the previous ones, but it'll include even more. It's going to be greater and grander and that sort of thing. So this will include the eastern continent of Hassan and the sort of southern continent of Imanju. And you might can even possibly tell by the way the naming schematics to those names, maybe what kind of they are. So Hassan is kind of an Asiatic sort of continent, just to put a general theming sweep to it. And Manju is sort of an African-themed continent. They actually join together. I wish I would have had a map ready to show it to you, but maybe I'll find it as I jabber on. But anyway, look in the previous SK stuff in the core rulebook, and you'll probably see it. So yeah, those two continents are joined together. Astagonia is like here. Then there's Hassan across the Dragon Sea. Then connected to Hassan is Amanju, again the African sort of continent. And at the very top is a polar continent, and it's not quite at the pole, but it's very close, called Ragnagard, also known as Rathkir for the strange, rare native beings, the Rathkiri who live there. And then there is the other known sort of continent is an island continent called Mezca, and that's right at the equatorial line. As far as the rest of the world sphere planet, assuming it actually is a round planet, because maybe it's not. No one really knows. This is a fantasy setting, but it is based loosely, maybe even more than loosely, in sort of a Dark Ages setting. So it's rarely happened, if at all, that anyone has circumnavigated the globe, and that's assuming, once again, that it is indeed a globe. Perhaps I don't even know. If I do know, I'm not sharing it because it's not important. It's not a science fiction game. Some things should be left mystical, and people making assumptions and rumor mongering and gossiping, that sort of thing. I've done a video on that in the past about how don't bring too much science into too much science. You want some, you want to ground your fantasy, but don't fixate on the science part of things, because then it gets beyond fantasy. If you want to run a science fantasy game, then feel free to do it. The Savage Kingdoms isn't really that per se. You probably could do it, but it's not really built that way. Right. Small tangent. So yeah, the Savage Kingdoms book the new one, the 3rd edition one, will be similar to the previous one. So it will introduce new race and cultural options. I think there's 13 or 14 new human cultures that are playable, that you can be a player character thereof, and from Azerians to Zaramis to the people of Zaramad, the Zaramese Empire, to the Zunti, the Yuntillans or Yuns, kind of similar to Mongolians. Again, this is just fantasy broad sweep. It's not meant to be. Anyway, the time that we live in. You have to kind of disclaimer things sometimes. Taikanara and Yana Khan, all these kind of very sort of to us Westerners of pretty exotic cultures. Um, um, Ebenezuk, or you can be an Ebenezu. That's how you pronounce it. So if you see the word, some people get tripped up on. It's meant to. It probably sounds like it's kind of Babylonian, Mesopotamian. That's the point, because it's kind of an analog to that. What else will I have in it? It'll have new talents. Again, I don't know about again. I don't think I said it, but a lot of the book is already written. So I've written probably 2/3 of it, maybe close to 3/4. We'll say 70% has already been written. I just have to write some more, edit, drop art, all that kind of stuff. So there'll be more talents. Again, most of it's already written. I've posted some on the Facebook official company page, so if you want to check that out. Haven't really done much with a website lately. I did this a few years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. I got this website domain. I was all like excited. Some of you who have websites probably understand what I'm talking about. Hopefully, if not, I guess I'm the only person that's like this. So you get all excited and you build your website, and I'm kind of learning finally how to kind of build websites using templating. So it's not that big a deal, but I'm learning some things and getting even moderately fancy with it, possibly. And then you get burnt, and you just kind of like, and I updated it for like a couple of months, and then now it's fall. I haven't updated the www.savagekingdoms.net in like 4 months probably. Anyway, it's not that big a deal because nothing's really changed. Like all the information on there is still legitimate, still applies. Things about T-shirts, about the new SK3 core rulebook. All those little things are in there too, but I probably do need to update just to let people know that we're still in existence. Yeah. So where was I? So yeah, if you go to those websites, that's where I was going. If you go to those the websites just mentioned, you could probably see some talents that I occasionally post like once a week or a couple times a week, really. New spells. There'll be new spells in the Savage East. There'll be there's a couple of new weaknesses. 3 new weaknesses, I believe, actually. I might even add another one or two. Like I said, still not completely written. What else is there? So there's 6 different types of talents categories. So there'll be at least one in each category. Actually, I think there's at least 3 in each category. So there's 3 new blood talents. I think is the least amount of talents in a particular category. There's a lot of new battle talents. So you'll notice the theming in the battle talents in the Savage East are very kind of martial arts, like typical empty-handed combat, unarmed combat techniques, because thematically that fits more with the East. And it still runs off the brawling skill. I know a lot of people when they hear the term brawl, it means it almost sounds like an untrained, just random fight. But no, brawling is all kinds of things, from grappling to trained Eastern martial arts to trained Western martial arts to punching and kicking. So anyway, most of those there's a lot of these talents that are kind of martial arts based, and they have kind of cool names. You'll see like in different styles, like crane. There's crane style, dragon style, uh, uh, scorpion style. There's even a lotus style, and there's several more. You'll see monkey style. There's several others in there. That's more thematic to the East, particularly the Far Eastern cultures. Not the stereotype. It's just this is all flavoring. Again, it's just all flavoring and thematic stuff. Um, so that'll be cool. So there's almost like a subcategory of battle talents that are kind of these martial arts talents. Now they're only available to certain cultures and certain races, but some of them are completely open. So a Western character could totally learn these if you had perhaps an in-game reason. So yeah, right. And there's even a couple of martial arts styles that are kind of Western in a way. There's one called Jané, which is kind of actually, it's my interpretation of French martial arts mixed with Israeli martial arts. Um, it's a very quick form, taking down your opponent within 10 seconds, that sort of thing. Some of you have done I've done some martial arts a long time ago, and would know more of what I'm talking about 20 years ago. But remembering back, uh, there's so many different styles, as you know, and some styles are not only exterior styles, but some of them are interior styles. Like, what is your approach in this battle if you have to fight someone? And hopefully you don't have to, but if you do, do you go completely offense? Do you go defense? Do you try to take the opponent down quickly? That's generally the goal, but some styles, some of the older styles aren't really like that. Some are to look pretty and fluid. They're almost like performance arts, martial arts style. So anyway, so all those types of little things are hopefully represented in these cool little sort of new battle talents. And there's a couple more new like traditional battle talents like shield mastery. Oh gosh, uh, it's all on my computer that I'm using right now. Like nothing's printed out, so I'm just kind of going by memory. I apologize. Just know that there's some more stuff in there as well. Um, there's some more mystical talents, a few more. I think I've only maybe introduced like four more so far, but there'll probably be a couple more. Definitely some new spells that are really cool that I'm really excited about, representing all seven disciplines of the magical arts. Um, so that should be fun. And they're mostly aimed to fill out some of the higher levels, magical arts skill levels. Um, but there's a few that are somewhat lower. I don't have any like one, two, or three level. I think maybe the lowest level spell is probably like magical arts level 4, which you can typically get around advancement 3. So yeah, but maybe I'll fill out a few more. But anyway, the mid to top levels needed a little more filling in, and the Savage East to me was a perfect chance to do that because it's a new book to introduce new material, but thematically, there's a lot of the Eastern cultures are more known to kind of have some of the more ancient, secret spells that may or may not be more powerful in a sense, but rarer to learn and very difficult to learn. And a lot of that comes back to dealings with the Sleer, the serpent folk, a long time ago, who kind of taught humans secrets or had secrets stolen from them. Um, the world lore is sort of kind of assumes pretty similar to our real world in many ways. That a lot of the original couching of civilization, at least for humankind, was kind of in the east, and it kind of spread. And then when the west finally caught on the west kind of accelerated a little bit, and it's sort of kind of evened out in a way. But so some of that lore is obviously there. So, so the Savage East, I'm really excited because it covers some of the really cool, iconic stuff from the setting that goes back, gosh, 30, 35 years to the ancient kingdom of Zarkon, which was like very ancient Egypt, almost a feel of Babylon to it. The people got very corrupt. They learned magic and alchemy, and but they were very shortcut in their magic. And so what I mean by shortcut is they had to learn like quick and dirty, and that's typically making pacts with demons, like really nasty stuff. Um, but then they were eventually overthrown by R. So R was a province of that area that kind of became sort of the good guys of the area. I hate to generalize, but just to generalize. And they eventually kind of threw down the Zarkonian oppressors and kind of gained their own freedom. This massive war called the War of Light and Shadow. Historians and lore masters typically call it that, looking back, which lasted, I think it was 5 years or 7 years. I think it was 5. And it blighted this whole area called Zarkon, which is now known as the Zarkonian Wastes or Wastelands. Yeah, and there were the Witch Lords rose to greatness there. There were nine Witch Lords, and if you notice a correlation to the 9 Witch Kings of Lord of the Rings, you're probably spot on because I'm sure that was in my noggin when I came up with them 35 years, 40 years ago. Um, so, so again, a lot of this lore is really old. So a lot of the campaign lore, setting lore, is even older in the Savage East than the core area of the West. So. Um, when I was designing this setting, I really actually worked on that continent first, and then the West was kind of the newer area, even though I had some Western cultures. So now, as the whole milieu is together, the history, I've had to rework some of the history, but most of it remained the same, explaining how some of the Western cultures got there. So some of the like sort of more European cultures that you might find in the East, it's probably pretty obvious what happened. They crossed the Dragon Sea and just settled in new areas for various reasons. Either they were conquering and exploring, as has happened in our real world, or they were outcast and they had to kind of settle in some new lands, or maybe it was a tribe that was enslaved and then they were given their freedom. So yeah, there's a whole reason now. So hopefully all that history will connect and be interesting to players and game masters. Right. Okay. What else can I tell you? A few more weaknesses. I already went over that, right? What are the new weaknesses? So one is primitive. Primitive is even like the next level beyond savage, because savage is a weakness in the core of the book. So primitive is goes even deeper. Like you can only start with two items, two pieces of gear that are metal, that are iron, or certainly not steel. Probably not steel. Most of your equipment you start with has to be wood, bone, or stone. That kind of thing. There's like a bigger pedal, like even using a crossbow is a little confusing at first. So there's a few other thematic elements in there, but that's kind of the main thing. Yeah, eunuch. Eunuch is another one. A lot of us don't like to talk about that one, but it's kind of a cool thematic. You see it in Game of Thrones. It's definitely a thing that's more kind of in sort of an Eastern cultures. At least it's kind of a stereotype. Not that you wouldn't see it in the West or further south or whatever. So that's why it's in the Savage East. So we can imagine the stuff that comes with being that. So yeah, eunuch is. I think it's for male characters only. I mean, it is what it is. So the other one, what is the other weakness? Masterless, I think. Masterless. Yeah, I think it's masterless. Masterless is pretty much what it says. No one is a master of you. And the reason it's a weakness is because that can show a lot of stubbornness. So you can't join like certain elite orders. You can't. I mean, you're masterless. The drawback being mostly that you can't join elite organizations, but also you might have problems. If you swear an oath to someone and you're known to be masterless, they're probably not going to take you very seriously. So yeah, so fun little complications to role play, and also having a little mechanical uh, benefit or lack of benefit thereof as well. What else? Whatever new spells, some new talents. There'll be a new equipment, some new gear. Um, some examples would be a Tulwar or Talwar. It's spelled differently, but I think it represents the same weapon, which is a giant two-handed scimitar. So that's kind of cool. I think those look so cool when you see them in movies and stuff. And they did exist. They were really rare. They were usually symbolic, or a court executioner carried them, and he typically did use it to execute, or he just carried it as a symbol thereof. We think. Maybe a rare warrior who's really big and just trained with this thing all the time might have used it on the actual battlefield, kind of like a Danish great axe wielder, just getting that thing whipping around and just daring anyone to come in on you, basically. Had to be very tiring after a while. So anyway, a great scimitar or tulwar. You'll see shurikens, typical ninja stars, as some people call them, but shuriken or shuriken is the actual name. That's the plural and the singular. So little, throwing stars, kind of cool. What else is extra weapons you might see? There's probably a few more. I think nunchaku or nunchucks, as some of it's called, will probably make an appearance. I haven't written them up, but probably. Bolas, so bolas will probably be in there. The guitars are thrusting daggers, so pretty much kind of the same as a regular dagger. They're just kind of used differently. So may or may not show up, maybe just thematically, but stat wise, they might be about the same as a regular dagger. It might be 1 point less maximum damage because they typically were just a little bit short just for just punching. Anyway, I'll figure out how to design those. So those might make an appearance. Then you might see some like samurai style armor, like the Kote or armor. I don't know. I haven't really. There actually was. There's yeah, samurai. On the note of samurai, two notes on the note of samurai. One was there was going to be a new calling, uh, samurai. And speaking of callings, while I'm on the subject, and it doesn't fly out of my brain. There are three new callings in the Savage East. There'll be cultist, uh, vizier. Vizier, very the high level courtier, is often very scheming, power behind the throne, sort of person. Cultist, it's on my computer. I want to look it up, but I can't do it without ruining the video, probably. What was the other one? Monk, as in, hey, fighting monk, warrior monk. That's the third calling that would be in there. So anyway, I thought about doing a samurai calling, and I'm still, I don't know, because knight already kind of does that. It's just an Eastern version of knight. I mean, in fact, they serve virtually the same role in both cultures, or not, or both general regions, many cultures actually. Um, so I don't know. We'll see, and I don't know how close I want to get, because remember, this is Dark Ages setting, and the samurai and their shoguns, and they're more of a 500 years later kind of thing. But there are some, as people have played the setting know, and just like in Robert E. Howard's Conan world, there's even though there's a lot of mixed matching of cultures, honestly, technological levels that are different, slightly different, sometimes moderately different. So maybe might work. I don't know. If I do that, then I'll probably add Shadow Warrior or Ninja. Already there is a talent called Shadow Warrior that you could take. Kind of like in the core rulebook, there are some talents that have the same name as callings, and the reason why I did that, not to be confusing, was because you can play a character who doesn't have a calling. And so in that case, you can grab a talent that, you're like, I'm not a bard in the calling, I'm just going to build whatever, but there's a talent called Bard, so that allows me to have some bardic abilities. Or maybe there's a talent called Shadow Warrior, even though I'm not really going to be a ninja. And some training in it. So, yeah. So that's how that works. Right. What else to speak upon? What else to speak on? Let's see, we got spells. We talked about that. Let's see, what else we got? So we talked about equipment, talked about talent and that sort of thing. I don't know why I'm like weirdly Irish all of a sudden. All right, it's been over 21 minutes. I've rambled enough. I think that's probably enough to go on. The Savage East coming out. Big thing, big ender here, big addendum. All right, when is it coming out, you ask? Or hopefully might wonder, at least to some mild degree. So the PDF, they're like the stripped down PDF for, actually for my personal friends of playtesters, I've already sent them a PDF of like completely unfinished. But I run games for some after school kids, which are awesome, and they were really wanting it. So I gave them kind of an early version, and some of my adult playtesters as well and players. So that's out there. So the next phase would be like the full PDF when it's finally all written, the stripped down version before the art. So that would go out next. That will probably be a month. I've gotten a little burned out recently, but I'm kind of getting back into it. So that's why I'm a little behind, actually. Not too behind, but a little bit. So hopefully in a month to 6 weeks, maybe that'll be ready. And then the big thing, the big hardcover full layout book, that's probably not going to be till May of next year, maybe June. And that's to give more time to get the book fully written, get all the artwork, hopefully I can get my graphic designer Michael Scott Phillips back again so it'll look similar, tie in with the original core rule book, although we'll have a different color scheme and stuff like that, which we've already kind of talked about. So yeah, so the Savage East, the full version will probably be more like May, but we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be before. Maybe it'll be after. Probably before or right at May. So I think that's about the Savage East. That's the announcement right there. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, gossip, talk about, poke fun at, maybe not that, this channel. And thanks you guys for tuning in, and I will talk to you again soon.